What are you all doing here? As far as I remember, today's a school day, isn't it?
We came down to say good luck to Rick. We're going right back now.
How come you get to skip school?
Well, because I'm a witness. I'm going to tell them that Rick didn't break into that computer. Now you guys get back to school.
Well, the truth is, Mr. Murray, we got our folks to call us in sick today so we could be here with Rick. We didn't know we couldn't go in.
Well, I won't say anything about it. Ready to go in, Rick?
Yeah, I guess so.
We know you didn't do it, Rick.
Good luck.
I'm Judge Robert J. Franklin. I chose the law as my way of serving my fellow citizens. As an elected judge in the family court, I pray each day that God will give me the wisdom to always temper justice with mercy.
What you're about to see is a dramatization of an actual case in family court. Because of the emotional and sensitive nature of the issues presented here, Judge Franklin's courtroom is closed to the public. The proceedings are about to begin.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Robert J. Franklin presiding. Raise your right hands. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Be seated, please. Miss Page, let's begin.
Your Honor, this is a juvenile delinquency hearing for Rick Gregory, age 15, who is accused of illegal computer access and the destruction of records belonging to the P.R.X. Credit Bureau. Mr. Larry Craig will represent P.R.X., and Mr. Ray Murray will testify for the defense. Also present is the defendant's mother, Mrs. Mary Gregory.
Thank you, Miss Page. Mr. Kramer, your opening statement, please.
Your Honor, Rick Gregory broke into the computer system of P.R.X. using a high school computer and erased several credit files, including his father's. He also maliciously tampered with vital employee records. He did all this after he made personal threats against a P.R.X. employee because of his father's poor credit history. P.R.X. security was able to trace the break-in, and Rick Gregory was arrested. This kind of tampering with confidential records cannot be tolerated. It's illegal and must be punished to the fullest extent of the law.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Edwards?
Your Honor, the evidence against Rick Gregory is circumstantial at best. The P.R.X. trace merely led to a high school computer room, which is used by more than 200 students every day. Also, the computer knowledge necessary to break into the P.R.X. system is far beyond the basic information that Rick has learned in less than 2 semesters of computer classes. Rick Gregory is not guilty of the charges against him. He is, however, being used as an example by unfeeling bureaucrats who, in an attempt to protect their name, must prosecute somebody. Why not a 15-year-old boy who was unable to fight back? The court must see through this sham and find Rick Gregory not guilty.
Very well, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kramer, your first witness, please.
I call Mr. Larry Craig.
Very well, sir.
Jeez, this guy's even creepier looking in the light.
Yeah, I see now what you meant.
Proceed, Mr. Kramer.
Mr. Craig, would you start by telling us what P.R.X. stands for and what your company does?
Yes, P.R.X. stands for Personal Resource Examiners. We are a credit information bureau. When you want to buy a car, or when you want a personal loan or a credit card, the lender comes to us and we supply them with your credit rating.
What is your job at P.R.X.?
I'm the head of human resources. I deal with the general public in the area of problem accounts.
Can you tell us in layman's terms about the break-in?
Last month, on the evening of the 21st, that was a Tuesday, someone managed to find a back door into our computer. That is, they were somehow able to discover the right word to bypass our security.
How was that possible?
Well, they probably ran a dictionary program through our system until they hit the correct word. But however they did it, once they were in, they erased 15 credit history files completely. And then They went to the employee payroll section and changed the W-2 information on the tax forms. The IRS has been hounding us ever since.
Were you able to trace the break-in to its source?
Of course. Using phone records, we found that the calls came from the computer room at Rossmore High School. We then cross-checked the students who had access to that room against our complaint file, people who had lodged complaints against our company.
Your Honor, I've entered into evidence States Exhibits 1 and 2, telephone company records showing calls from Rossmore High to P.R.X.
Yes, I've seen them. Proceed.
Were there any matches on the list of computer students and your complaint file?
Yes, there was only one match, and I could have told you that without the lists. Gregory.
You're referring to the defendant?
That's right. Not only did he have access to the computer room, but on the night of the break-in, he went so far as to come to my home and threaten me with violence.
Would you describe the incident?
It was around 8 o'clock, and I heard someone pounding on my front door. I went to see who it was. There was young Gregory, waving his fists in my face, saying how he was going to get me. Well, I told him that if he didn't leave immediately, I'd call the police. He yelled a couple of obscenities, and then he took off.
Do you know why he threatened you?
Yes, because his father is a very poor credit risk. For some misguided reason, young Mr. Gregory blames P.R.X. But we don't establish credit. We only report it.
What was the cost of the damage done to your computer system?
In man-hours and the development of a new computer system, several $100,000. And we're not sure we found the full extent of the damage that he caused yet.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. No further questions.
Very well, sir. Cross-examine, Counselor.
Mr. Craig, may I ask you a few questions about P.R.X.?
Go ahead.
Well, first, you're pretty much the final word on credit. I mean, if a lender comes to you and you say no, then the borrower can kiss the loan goodbye, right?
If you are implying that we make judgments, we don't. We merely supply information.
And what if that information is incorrect? What recourse does the borrower have?
Incorrect? What do you mean by incorrect?
I mean, if you're wrong.
We can't be wrong. We just coordinate the credit information and make it available to our customers. If we're given bad information, well, that's not our fault.
And yet you have complaints. I mean, people do come to you and say that you've made mistakes, do they not?
Yes, they do, and they are invariably wrong.
Well, how many people would you say in an average week might disagree with that assessment?
I don't know, 40 or 50, really. I don't see the point.
The point I'm trying to make is that you're dealing with very sensitive information, a person's credit. Now, you admit to 50 people a week with complaints. That's more than 2,500 people a year. And yet you have singled out a 15-year-old boy? Why?
Because he did it.
Mr. Craig, were you aware that Rick Gregory's father had a severe heart attack 2 days before Rick argued with you?
Yes, he told me on the night he came to my house.
Your Honor, Defense Exhibit A, the medical report on James Gregory's condition. Mr. Craig, the doctors say the heart attack was caused by stress. Stress brought on through the loss of his hardware store, which resulted directly from your credit report.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is speculating. Besides, it only proves that Rick Gregory had a motive for the crime.
Mr. Kramer, your objection is sustained, but I would appreciate it if you'd let me draw my own conclusions. Go ahead, Ms. Evans.
Mr. Craig, you were the man in charge of James Gregory's credit records, weren't you?
Yes?
And when he came to you for help, what did you do?
Well, I listened to his story, but believe me, I've heard these stories a million times.
Did you do anything to help him?
There wasn't anything to do. It was all there in black and white.
Well, did you contact the people that had supplied that information?
That isn't our responsibility.
With that kind of attitude, Mr. Craig, how did you ever get to become head of human resources? No further questions, Your Honor.
Very well, Counselor. You may step down, Mr. Craig. Thank you very much. Mr. Kramer, have you any further witnesses?
Your Honor, the plaintiff rests.
Very well. Ms. Edwards, will you call your first witness, please?
Your Honor, I call Rick Gregory to the stand.
Very well. You may proceed, Ms. Edwards.
Rick, let's clear up where you were on the night in question.
Well, first I'd been to the hospital to see my dad. I got real mad seeing what P.R.X. did to him. He told me that Mr. Craig wouldn't even talk to him anymore. So I looked up his address in the phone book and I rode my bike over to his house.
And what happened when you got there?
Nothing really. I knocked on the door, and when he answered, I just started yelling stuff at him. It was pretty stupid, really. Then I got on my bike and I rode home.
Rick, why were you mad at Mr. Craig?
Well, see, my dad used to have a store, Gregory's Hardware. He had some sort of payment due, so he went to the bank to get a loan, but the bank turned him down because P.R.X. said he had bad credit. See, Dad's always been real good about paying his bills, so he just figured it was a mistake, and he went to P.R.X. to straighten it out.
And what happened?
Well, you saw him. He said they don't make mistakes. So my dad went to all the companies that supposedly report bad credit, and they had no record of it. So the problem had to be at P.R.X., but Mr. Craig wouldn't listen to him. Anyway, my dad lost the store, and then he had a heart attack.
Rick, were you angry enough at P.R.X. to break into their computer files?
No. I was mad at Craig. My dad said he could have helped, but he wouldn't. Anyway, I don't even know how to break in. I just started learning about computers this year.
Thank you, Rick. No further questions.
Mr. Kramer?
You say you went home right after your visit to Mr. Craig. Did anyone see you?
Well, my mom did.
According to the police report, State's Exhibit 3, your mom said that you got home a little after 11 o'clock. You said you left Mr. Craig a little after 8 o'clock p.m. Where were you for those 3 hours, which just happened to coincide with the break-in?
I was just riding around.
Just riding around? For 3 hours? In the dark? Rick, do you have a key to the computer club room at school?
I don't have my own. There's one key, and we all take turns being in charge of it each week.
And who was in charge of it that week?
I was. But I didn't break into that computer.
Oh, that's right. You wouldn't know how. But you knew how to break into Mr. Murray's computer last April, didn't you?
That was April Fool's Day. It was just a joke.
That joke was to erase your teacher's files, wasn't it?
Yes, but I had backup
So,
files.
you admit you have a history of erasing computer files. You admit you blame P.R.X. for your father's heart attack. You cannot account for your whereabouts during the break-in, and you had the only key to the computer club room. No further questions, Your Honor.
Sir, I didn't break into that computer.
All right, Rick, you may step down. Thank you very much. Your next witness, Ms. Edwards.
I call Mr. Ray Murray.
Very well. Mr. Murray, let me remind you that you were sworn in as this hearing began. And now as you testify before this court, you're testifying under oath. Understood? All right, Counselor, go ahead.
Mr. Murray, would you tell us what you do for a living?
I'm the computer teacher at Rossmore High.
And how long has Rick Gregory been your student?
Well, since he started taking classes from me this year.
You can clear up one of the central issues in this case. Was Rick Gregory capable of breaking into the P.R.X. computer?
No. Now, that kind of knowledge either takes years of training or a computer genius. Rick has not had the training, and he's bright, but he's no genius.
And how did he get into your computer files on April Fool's Day?
Simple. Everyone has my password, and I don't have any security system. It's not quite the same situation as at P.R.X.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. No further questions.
Mr. Kramer, cross-examine.
Mr. Murray, have you seen the final report on the P.R.X. break-in?
No, I haven't. I've just heard about it.
So you don't know how complex or how simple it would be to break into the P.R.X. system, do you?
Well, I assume it would be very difficult to get around their security.
Yes, but whoever did it was pretty sloppy. Not only did they allow themselves to be traced, they left some garbage in the machine. Your Honor, this is State's Exhibit 4. It's an enlargement of the computer characters left by the hacker. Now, Mr. Murray, an experienced computer expert, would not have left such traces behind, correct?
Unless they were trying to make it look amateur.
Or unless they were an amateur. No further questions, Your Honor.
Very well, Counselor. You may step down, Mr. Murray. Thank you very much. Ms. Edwards, have you any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Very well.
Miss Edwards, that card, those random characters, it wasn't Rick, and I can show you that. You got to get me back up there on the stand.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to reopen and recall Mr. Murray.
Very well. You may proceed, Ms. Edwards.
Mr. Murray, would you please tell us what the significance of these characters are?
They're trademarks. Now, what P.R.X. thought was garbage, it's not a random string of characters. They're trademarks used by the members of my computer club. Like signatures. The sideways smiley face, that's Dan Remus. The RH90 stands for Rossmore High, class of 1990, that's Tina Billings. And the dashes and dots, that's Morse code for the initials GP, or Graymore Parks.
And these are all students of yours?
Yes. And they are all capable of breaking into the P.R.X. computer. They were out in the hallway earlier.
Mr. Murray, would you mind stepping down? Ms. Edwards, Mr. Kramer, I'd like to talk to these three. Have you any objections?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Very well, bailiff, would you bring them in, if they're still out there?
Nicely done.
I've wondered why they were hanging around. It all makes sense.
That's right. Come right along in. Just stand over here by Rick, please. Now, my name's Judge Franklin. Would you tell me your names, please?
I'm Dan Remus.
Tina Billings.
Oh, Graymore Parks.
It seems that whoever broke into the P.R.X. computer left some smiley faces, some Morse code, and a string of characters, RH90. Mr. Murray seems to feel that perhaps you know what these things mean. Now, let me tell you before you say anything that you don't have to appear in court today, but I can subpoena all of you, so we might as well get it over with. Any objections? All right, now the court clerk is going to swear you in, but before she does, let me tell you this, that you have the right to remain silent, because anything you say can be used against you. You understand that? Good. Ms. Edwards, will you represent these young people?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. Miss Page?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good. Now, did any of you help Rick Gregory break into the P.R.X. computer?
No. Well, we didn't exactly help him.
What do you mean?
Well, Rick didn't know anything about it. You see, he told us about his dad and about P.R.X. and everything. And we decided to hack into the computer and dump his dad's rating. We did some other files, too, so they wouldn't get suspicious.
I thought Rick had the only key to the computer room that night.
Oh, we made copies of the key a long time ago. Sorry, Mr. Murray.
Tell him about the back files.
Yeah, tell them what we found out.
Your Honor, anything they had was obtained illegally.
Noted, Counselor, but I'd like to hear what they found in those files.
We double-checked everything, and we found a Gregory James listed. You see, they switched the names around and gave Mr. Gregory this guy's bad credit. But on the backs, that's backup files, they're accurate.
Is that possible, Mr. Craig?
It's highly unlikely.
It's there, man. We found it.
All right, son. I'd like to see both counsel and Mr. Craig in my chambers, please. I think perhaps I have found a solution to this problem. Let's talk about it.
This case of voodoo will keep you on pins and needles.
Especially pins.
Coming up next time on The Judge.
After the discussion I've just had with Mr. Craig and both attorneys in chambers, all charges against Rick Gregory are dismissed. It appears, Rick, that you have some very good friends with some very bad ideas. Dan and Tina and Graymore, what you did was wrong. I appreciate that you were trying to help your friend, but that was not the way to go about it. Now, Mr. Craig, as we discussed with the Assistant District Attorney in Chambers, your company, P.R.X., will not press charges against these young people. In return, they will show you exactly how they got into your computer system, and they will donate their time to help repair the damage they caused. In addition, P.R.X. has agreed to restore Mr. James Gregory's credit file, and the company has offered to make amends for the grievous harm done to the Gregory family. And that includes the restoration of Mr. Gregory's business, and as a gesture of good faith, the payment of all medical costs related to Mr. Gregory's heart attack. And if I were you, Mr. Craig, I would never fail to remember that your system does make mistakes. And I hope you'll no longer ignore the complaints you seem to get every day. You're not dealing with numbers, Mr. Craig. You're dealing with people's lives. For heaven's sakes, remember that. And kids, If you ever pull a stunt like this again, I guarantee that you won't get off this easily, and don't you forget it. That's all. This court stands adjourned.
Yeah. You guys, I can't believe it. This is great.
We're real sorry we got you in trouble for this, Rick.
Hey, it's okay. Everything worked out. My dad got his store back. You guys are terrific. See you guys at school, okay?
You know, we have just enough time to make it back to school for 5th period.
Hey, but that's our lunch.
Oh, no, it's not. Guess who just donated their lunch period for the rest of the year to picking up trash in the lunchroom? And if you ever do anything like this again, I'll personally kick your butts right out of school. Now let's have those keys. Now, come on. The lunch man called.